So here at RDC, we have a project management platform called BuilderTrend. And this is an online portal that we can invite our clients into. It's also the project management software that the team uses from a schedule point of view. We load daily log photos to it. We also upload financial data as well as all the documentation from the project. So the client not only has access to the financial data, invoicing data, scheduling data, but what we find is the most valuable component of this is the daily logs. And so the site superintendent at the end of each day will load a brief description of the work completed, what the weather was, who was on site, and most valuably, we'll load photos from the progress from construction on that day. And so particularly for clients who may not be able to get to Whistler very often, they can log in the following day and they get photographic evidence of exactly what we did. It's really helpful to build trust because then they can see that what we said we were doing is actually getting done. One of the features that we really like with BuilderTrend that builds on the photographic evidence is we do have, and it is a relatively simplified schedule, and a client can log into the platform. They can have a look at the scheduling tool. It's a Gantt chart similar to Microsoft Project, a little bit of in a simplified form. They can have a look at that chart. It may say, drywall is scheduled to begin this week. And then they can go to the photographs from the daily log and they can actually see that drywall has actually started. And so they have an indication of where their project is supposed to be at from the scheduling tool, and they can go back to the daily logs and they can validate, the guy said in the schedule they were doing drywall, and I can see in the daily log photos that they're doing drywall. So particularly for clients who may not be anywhere close to Whistler, whether they're offshore or in other parts of British Columbia or Canada, this really helps us build trust with our clients so that they can see that what we say we were doing is evidenced on the platform, that we actually are performing those tasks. One of the most important things that we do is to keep clients informed on not only the progress of their project, but also on the consequences should the scope of work change. And clients at times will make decisions to make changes to a project. And of course, if we change a project and the project scope, if we reduce the scope of work, then schedules can get shortened and costs can come down. Of course, on the opposite side, if scope gets added, costs go up. And it's really important for us that we keep clients appraised of the consequences of those changes. We always want to make sure that people have choice. So if they decide they want to make a change, we want to make sure that they have all the information to understand the consequences of those changes. So when a change is requested from the client's point of view, we'll do the best job we can to give them at least some idea of what the cost consequences of that change might be, as well as the scheduling consequences, because as cost goes up, there is a high degree of probability that the schedule is also going to get extended. And so, the scheduling tool and the change directive or change order process that we have in BuilderTrend helps keep clients informed as to the consequences of some of their decision making. All those change costs and changes are approved through the platform in real time. So not only can they see what the cost of the change is likely to be, but it also will then update the global budget. So not only do they see, what the cost of that individual item is, but they can see the accrued costs, consequences to the total budget. And then, of course, if there's a schedule change, you can see that schedule advancing on the scheduling tool. So the daily log function in BuilderTrend, I think, is one of the most valuable components of this online project management tool. The client is invited in, as I noted earlier, and at the end of each day, one of the senior members of the project team who's on site, most of the time it's the site superintendent, will take photographs of the progress from the day. All those progress photos get loaded onto the BuilderTrend site. Typically, this is done by the end of day, so 4:30, 5 o'clock. Those in Pacific time, those photos would be loaded, as well as identifying who was on site, so RDC team members who were on the job that day, which trades were there, and what were the high-level tasks that were completed. So in this way, when a client logs in either in the evening or the following morning, they can see, photographic evidence of exactly what went on, as well as identifying, who was on site and what tasks were they doing. So we have found that using BuilderTrend, particularly with our clients who are offshore, has had a huge impact on their experience through the building process. One of my, learning outcomes over, 30 years of doing this is that when clients can't actually see what's going on in their project, it can create an enormous amount of stress. Of course, I think we all suffer sometimes when we're not fully informed as to what's going on. We tend to catastrophize sometimes and imagine the worst possible outcomes. We did have a client a number of years ago who, just prior to starting a project with us, had completed another offshore project and had actually made 6 impromptu visits to the project halfway around the world because he was so anxious that the project was not being completed on schedule. And in fact, when he showed up, he discovered that no work had been done for a few weeks. And so it created an enormous amount of stress for him as a family. And then when he engaged with the project with us, with the BuilderTrend daily logs, it was the highlight. He told us it was the highlight of every morning as he and his kids would open up the platform and they would have a look at the progress photos from the previous day. And in fact, we completed that project in about 11 months. And the only time he visited the project was in the final week of completion. He said that the daily log evidence gave him an enormous amount of trust and confidence that we were doing what we said we were going to do and that the project would be completed on time. And he was eternally grateful that we hadn't dragged him halfway around the world on numerous occasions for him to simply validate that we were doing what we said we were going to do. So to me, this really highlights the value of software like this. And so for anybody who's considering doing work from afar, I would strongly recommend you look for contractors that have this opportunity to create this daily touch point to give you confidence that what your contractor says they're doing is evidenced in those daily log posts. One of the great features with the BuilderTrend platform is that any changes in cost and schedule are approved through the platform itself. So if there is adequate time, then potentially we can post a change order, which is reflective of, we clearly understand what the scope of work is. We've gotten pricing from all the trades and suppliers. And so then we can give you a hard number in terms of this is the change and this is what the cost is going to be. At other times, when changes are made a little bit more on the fly and we may not be able to accurately identify what that cost might be, given that schedule is more important than cost, we'll issue what would be referred to as a change directive. It has also gone through on the BuilderTrend platform, and it will give the client a budget. And then, of course, as the work progresses, the budget in that change directive would be updated as costs, have more visibility. Either way, this is a way that somebody who's not in direct contact, particularly if they're in a different time zone, can log onto the platform during their daily work. They can see what the cost is, and then they can approve it within the software itself. And it really does simplify and facilitate easy approval of these changes as you go through the construction process. So, one of the things that is top of mind for us is clear communication. If we can communicate clearly with our clients, it gives us a much better opportunity to meet expectations. If people understand what's going on, then they're much less likely to interpret things incorrectly. So that communication helps build trust and improves relationships. Within the BuilderTrend platform, of course, we talked about the daily logs. We have budget and scheduling there. But in addition is all the information from invoicing can also be found in BuilderTrend. While the invoice in of itself is a somewhat simplified document, as each invoice is sent out, the client can log into the BuilderTrend platform, and they can find all the details from that invoicing period. So that's the timesheets from RDC staff. It is the trade and supplier invoices in hard copy in that platform. So if they are curious about what that invoice includes, they can find all that hard documentation there, particularly when we're dealing with cost plus projects. And of course, this information is available only on cost plus, but when you're doing a cost plus contract, it's really important that the client feels that they have access to all that information to validate that what they're getting charged on the global invoice is actually reflective of the true cost that RDC is incurring. And of course, all those invoices reflect the cost that RDC incurred, understanding that the way that cost plus works is we're going to charge a percentage fee on the cost that we incur. And so then the clients can also see that, any discounts that are accruing to RDC through our trade and supplier relationships are also getting passed on to the client themselves. One of the things that we're highly aware of is that we're spending a lot of money on people's houses, whether it's renovation or new construction. Certainly in the marketplace out there, there's a lot of publicity around the cost of construction. And so, we respect the fact that we're spending people's money and we're spending a lot of it. We need to really build our relationship on a foundation of trust. And trust only comes through being transparent in all the things that we do. And so the BuilderTrend platform is really instrumental in doing this through the financial data that's available, whether it's for budgeting and cost tracking, or whether it's through invoicing, whether it's through the scheduling tool or through the daily logs. Any client who's engaging with us can see in real time, where their project is at. And if they take the time to dig into the platform, they also get a really good understanding of where they're at with regard to their schedule and costs. One of the things that we really take pride in at RDC is clear communication and building relationships based on trust through transparency. The BuilderTrend platform is a key tool, particularly for clients who are out of province or out of country, and really facilitates that trusting relationship through the transparency that the platform offers. I think that for anybody who's considering significant projects, looking for a builder who offers something like this will dramatically improve the client's experience, because they don't have to rely on somebody simply telling them they're doing what they need to do. They can see that direct evidence, whether it's through the daily logs, the scheduling tool, or the financial data that's provided. And there's no way to hide from this. It's either there or it's not. And so, it creates, a great way for us to build that foundation of trust to end up with a project that, clients can enjoy, feel like, it's collaborative, and keeps everybody on track as to what the expectation is on quality, schedule, and cost.